What if the place you call home doesn't recognize you as one of its own? This is the harsh reality for some individuals born to migrant parents in countries that do not automatically grant citizenship by birth. This phenomenon is part of what we call birth tourism, a term that carries with it a multitude of implications and dangers. Birth tourism is an intricate puzzle that involves families leaving their home countries to give birth in foreign lands, often with the hope of securing better futures for their children. However, not all countries grant citizenship by birthright. In these cases, the children born to migrant parents may find themselves in a unique predicament. They grow up in a country, learn its language, its culture, and consider it home, only to discover that legally they're seen as foreigners. Consider the stories of 4 individuals caught in this conundrum. They were born to African migrants in Western countries that do not confer citizenship by birth. As adults, they found themselves deported to their parents' native African countries, places they had never been before and where they couldn't speak the local language. These individuals found themselves alienated, not only from their birth countries, but also from their ancestral lands. Some were rejected by their own relatives, while others were exploited for their perceived wealth. Their stories serve as poignant reminders of the challenges faced by many who tread this precarious path. The struggle of these 4 individuals is a stark illustration of the complexities of birth tourism. It's a journey filled with uncertainty and hardship, a journey that many did not choose. Their tales reveal the harsh consequences of a system that can leave individuals straddling 2 worlds, yet not truly belonging to either. These are the stories of those caught up in the complex web of birth tourism, a journey they did not choose. Imagine returning to a country you've never known, a place where you're a stranger despite your roots. Meet John, a young man born to African migrants in a country that doesn't automatically grant citizenship by birth. His parents dreamed of a better life for their son, yet their status as undocumented immigrants meant that John was never recognized as a citizen of the country he called home. One morning, without warning, John was deported. The shock was immediate and profound. He was sent back to a land that was supposed to be his, yet he had never set foot on it before. Here he was, a stranger in what should have been a familiar land. John didn't speak the local language. With every word he couldn't understand, every sentence he couldn't respond to, he felt more and more alienated. The language barrier erected an invisible wall between him and the people around him. It wasn't just about not being able to communicate, it was about not being able to connect, to belong. The sting of rejection from his relatives was a wound that cut even deeper. They refused to associate with him, viewing him as an outsider, a foreigner. The family ties that should have been his lifeline in this unfamiliar place were severed by prejudice and misunderstanding. His own kin turned their backs on him. John's story is not unique. It's the story of countless others who, because of circumstances beyond their control, find themselves stranded in a land that should have been home. They are left grappling with a sense of displacement, a longing for belonging that remains unfulfilled. This is the harsh reality for those caught in the web of birth tourism. They are neither here nor there, caught in a limbo between 2 worlds. They face the pain of rejection and the struggle for acceptance in a land that should have been home. A harsh reality of birth tourism, the pain of rejection, and the struggle for acceptance in a land that should have been home. What if your worth to your relatives was determined solely by your financial status? Think about it for a moment. Imagine being seen not as a person, but as a walking, talking wallet. This is the story of our second person, a story that is as heart-wrenching as it is thought-provoking. Born to African migrants in a foreign land, this individual knew nothing about Africa outside of what was taught in school. The only connection to their African roots was through their parents, who were themselves alienated from their homeland. After deportation, they found themselves in an unfamiliar land, with relatives they had never met. These relatives, however, were not the welcoming, loving family one might expect. They saw not a long-lost kin, but a source of income, a treasure chest that had landed on their doorstep. The warmth of their welcome was directly proportional to the thickness of the wallet. But the wallet was not bottomless. It was a finite resource, rapidly dwindling under the constant demands. As the money began to run out, so did the hospitality. The warm smiles turned cold, the kind words became harsh admonitions. The home that was once a refuge became a prison, the family, a jury. The question was not if, but when the funds would run dry. And when it did, the inevitable happened. The door that was once open was now firmly shut. The family ties, it seemed, were not strong enough to withstand the pressure of financial strain. This is the reality for many who find themselves in the world of birth tourism. The expectations and dreams of a warm homecoming are shattered by the harsh reality of exploitation. The dream of reconnecting with one's roots becomes a nightmare of estrangement and alienation. In this world, even the concept of family, the one institution that should be a haven of unconditional love and support, can be tainted by greed and opportunism. In the world of birth tourism, even blood ties can come with a price. What happens when you're torn between two worlds belonging to neither? Picture this. You're born to African migrants in a land that's not your own, a land that does not recognize you as one of its own. This is the story of two individuals who experienced this alienation firsthand. The third individual, let's call her Jane, was born in a bustling city in Europe. She grew up speaking French, eating croissants, and dreaming in shades of the Eiffel Tower. But when she turned 18, the government told her that she was not French. Jane was deported to a country she had never been to, a country where she didn't speak the language and where she had no ties. She was a stranger in her parents' homeland, struggling to adapt to a culture that was as foreign to her as she was to it. She tried to connect with her relatives, but they saw her as an outsider, a burden they hadn't asked for. Jane found herself utterly alone, trapped in a world that she didn't understand and that didn't understand her. Then, there's the fourth individual. We'll call him John. Born in the heart of the United States, John grew up with the American dream etched into his heart. But that dream was shattered when he was deported to his parents' native African country. Unlike Jane, John had relatives willing to host him, but they were only interested in the money he could bring. When his pockets ran dry, they showed him the door. He was left alone, grappling with a language he didn't speak and customs he didn't understand. He was an alien in his own homeland, a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. These are the faces of birth tourism, individuals born in foreign lands to migrant parents who find themselves caught in a limbo between two worlds. They are neither here nor there, belonging to neither, alienated from both. Caught in the crossfire of birth tourism, these individuals live a life of perpetual uncertainty. Birth tourism, an escape for some, a life sentence for others. As we delve deeper into the complexities of birth tourism, we see the tapestry of narratives unraveling before our eyes. The tales of four adults, born in the land of dreams to African migrants, deported to a world unknown, a world they were expected to call home. These individuals, born in countries that do not grant citizenship by birthright, found themselves in a precarious situation. Their lives were abruptly uprooted, sent back to a land they had never seen, to people who spoke a language foreign to their ears. They were supposed to find solace in the arms of relatives, but instead, they found a harsh reality, a reality that didn't want them. The bitter truth of birth tourism is that it can lead to a life of alienation, a life without belonging. The child, born in a foreign land, grows up in a culture that is not their own. While their birthright is denied by the land of their parents, they are trapped in a limbo, belonging neither here nor there. The stories we've shared highlight the dangers and challenges of birth tourism. The adults we've met were born to parents who sought a better life. Parents who might have been undocumented migrants when their children were born. These children, now adults, do not qualify for citizenship and find themselves deported to different African countries as adults. Countries they have never known, languages they have never spoken, and relatives they have never met. These adults face the harsh reality of rejection, the pain of not belonging, the struggle of finding a place they can call home. They are the living testament of the bitter truth of birth tourism. They are the real faces behind the statistics, the heart-wrenching stories behind the headlines. While birth tourism may promise a better life, The reality can be a life of struggle, rejection, and a desperate search for a place to call home.